today's food for thought session is based around food that you might get from the food bank. So we've taken a standard bag of food from the King's Lynn Food Bank and just adapted it to make some nice, fresh, healthy recipes. So with a simple tin of casserole filling, beef casserole filling, you can also have these in chicken. We made a little hot water cross pastry and made some individual pies and then served them with some tinned mushy peas. Don't have to be mushy, you can get fresh. What we also did was put this in a little dish and sliced some potatoes really finely and made a hot pot out of it. So from one tin you could get a couple of different meals. The other thing that we did today was we made a fresh bean chilli. So we did some onion, then we put through it some fresh carrot, and then we added to it some passata, or you could use a tomato pasta sauce, a range of different beans, which are a brilliant source of protein if you don't have any meats or fish. So we've got some chili beans, you could use borlotti beans, cannellini beans, haricot beans, anything like that. Little bit of stock, cook it all up with some chopped tomatoes, let it simmer, and we served it with some really basic tortilla chips that we put in the oven for 2 minutes to freshen up. And lastly, which went down really well, we did a little peach cobbler, so some tinned fruit, and then all we did was on the top, a little bit of butter and flour, mixed together with some sugar, popped an egg in, put some dollops on the top of the mixture, and cooked it off for about 40 minutes. So from a tinned bag, there's always lots you can do. You don't have to just have basics. Mix things around, add bits and bobs in. So for example, in our cobbler, we could have added some oats, or you can make a simple crumble for your tinned fruit, a few little oats on there with your butter and your sugar and your flour. That would be really nice. Morning, everybody. Got my helper Daisy here today. Another willing pair of hands. Has everybody had a good week? Yeah. Good, glad to hear it. So what we're going to do today is, like Rebecca said, we're going to do some tinned dried food. Okay, so tinned or dried in the main. Obviously we will be adding ingredients in to make it kind of more interesting where possible. But essentially we're just going to kind of see what we can do on, it is low budget cooking, and we've kind of done a lot of low budget cooking, but we're just going to see what we can make from a load of tins that you would get in the supermarket, and it's cheap to do. Does anyone buy regularly tinned vegetables and fruits? Pardon? Chickpeas, so like pulses, things like that. I think there's almost a bit of a stigma with tinned vegetables, is that a lot of people kind of poo-poo them in terms of, I'll buy fresh. Whereas actually the reality of tinned or dried fruit and vegetables is that as long as they're in water and not in syrups and things, actually their nutritional value is exactly the same as fresh. So if you have a tin of chopped tomatoes, which we probably all use regularly, they are nutritionally the same as if you buy fresh tomatoes. And the same with all veg, it is nutritionally the same. And you know, I don't know, the time I started to use them a bit more was COVID, because you used to regularly go to supermarkets, didn't you, and you'd go and get your produce, and then all of a sudden there was a change and we were going once a week, so we had to use perhaps frozen or tinned a little bit more. So these are just some ideas, and you know, to be honest, if you wanted to change things for fresh, or when we do the pies, obviously that could be a fresh homemade filling, that's absolutely fine, but we're just going to go through some basic recipes. And we're going to kind of have them cooking in tandem today. So when we'll eat these, I don't know. It's just going to be in bits and bobs today. We're going to get all sorts of things going on. And there's no chocolate tart, I am afraid to say. But we may have double cream for something else. So first thing I'm going to get going today is my veg chilli, just because the veg chilli is really nice if it can sit for a period of time, blipping away. And this is a really loose recipe in that you can completely change it. So as long as you've got the basis of, you know, the chili there, it doesn't really matter what you're putting into it. So I'm just going to whack an onion in first, and I'm just going to do 2 just because there's a few of us. And we're just going to roughly chop the onion, which we're probably all complete experts at because we do them all the time now. And those of you that have got the Ninja, I know some of us have purchased the little Ninja choppers. At this point, you're just going to be whacking your onion into the Ninja. Yours will already be done because you're such an expert. So I'm just going to chop that up, just roughly, just into little pieces. You could leave it, larger if you want. You could use frozen if you want. However you choose, you could use red onions. You could use leeks instead of onion if you like a slightly softer taste. Talked about that when we made our chicken pie. So we just loosely chop that up. And then I'm just going to pop it into a fairly large pan with about a tablespoon of oil. And we also know, because we've talked about it loads, that we're not going to have our pan too hot, because we don't want to hit the onion into the pan and all of a sudden have a big burst of heat and it will burn the edges of the onion. So we're going to go nice and soft. Okay, so I'm just going to pop this in here, like so. Like that. There we go. So you're not hearing anything, so that's quite good. Now on your recipe, I'm just going to let that cook down for 2 or 3 minutes. On your recipe, I give you the option. I've said about putting some carrot in. Now carrot would be a good thing to put in because it's a vegetable that will hold. We've got a couple of options. So I've got some sliced carrots in water and I've got a fresh carrot. Now if you were doing the fresh carrot, you're going to pop it in now with the onion. And it might be that you've got 2 or 3 carrots. So don't look at the recipe and think she said 1. Stick whatever you've got in is absolutely fine. And the other thing I said that you could put in, which worked really well, is peppers. And they might be out of a jar. The only thing is if peppers are in a jar, they've got quite a bit of oil on them. So really drain the oil off. And I'm just going to roughly chop this carrot. So because this is the fresh one, I'm going to pop it in with my onion fairly early on to sweat down. If they're the tinned ones, we wouldn't want to do that because everything in a tin is already cooked, obviously. So if I then put those in too early, you're just going to have carrot puree swimming around in your chilli by the end. So I'm just going to take a handful of fresh carrot and pop that in there. Just get a little bit more heat going on. And we're just going to let that sort of just cook off for 3 or 4 minutes, which will give me time to open a copious amount of tins. Now, I want to show you how kind of versatile this could be. So I'm going to put about 3 tins of beans in, but the joy of this recipe is it will just freeze really well. And I would suggest if you are freezing things, you perhaps think about buying like those takeaway pots, because that's a portion, isn't it? You just pop them in, freeze them, you can reuse them, wash them, write bean chilli on the top, and you'll know exactly what's in there. So I've got some cannellini beans, I've got some peeled plum tomatoes. I was given all these bits and bobs from the food bank, so we're just working with that. So I've got some butter beans. Then I've got, which was quite nice here, plant-based Mexican mixed bean chili. So that's already got some spice in, so that's quite helpful. The other thing that you can obviously get is chili beans in a chili sauce, so they would work really well. I would normally use a couple of tins of chopped tomatoes. I've only got 1, but I did notice I got this little pasta sauce. So I'm just going to pop a bit of that in as well, because anything will do. So with our beans, we're just going to drain them off. We don't want all the liquid in there. Apart from the ones in the chili, obviously we do want those. So I'm just going to take those out. There we go. Got some children here now. I've got some Halloween biscuits in the back. Do you want to go and do some Halloween biscuits? There we go. I'll give you that. You can go and do some Halloween biscuits, can't you, with that? There you go. A bit more interesting than a 3-bean chili. So I've drained my beans off here. And then before I put them in, so I'm just going to, we just want this to soften very slightly. We know these ovens by now. We know that things take a lot longer than anticipated. We'll give that a little mix round. We want it to just start to look slightly translucent, the onion. And then what we're going to do before we add anything else is we're going to add some flavour, some spice in there. And I'm going to add a bit of chilli powder and a bit of ground cumin. Now at home you might have only chili powder. That is fine. You don't have to rush out and buy anything else. It might be that you've got a bit of ground coriander at home. That would be really nice in there. It might be that you've got a bit of paprika at home. That would work really well in there. If you don't like spice, it doesn't have to be a chili. It can just be a really nice 3-bean vegetable sauce. So, you know, don't think, oh, I can't make it because I'm really not into spice. The important thing with spice, though, is that we add it at the point where the pan is essentially dry. So you don't want to add all of your liquid and then be sprinkling spice on top, okay, like a kind of pond with spice going over it, because spices are really intensified if you cook them out from dry. Okay, so get them in first, all right? So I'm hearing something going on now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add about, oh, what do we think? Everyone loving a bit of heat? I don't want to make it not spicy, but at the same time, we'll add about a teaspoon. Let's go with a teaspoon. It does say quite warm on it, so we'll try that. Apologies if that's too hot. Hopefully it's not. I love a bit of ground cumin. My absolute favourite. And you think, oh, can't be bothered. But the greatest place to get spices, if you ever go up into King's Lynn, and you go down Gayton Road, like past the hospital, as if you're going into town, as if you're heading to Aldi, on Gaywood Clock Tower Corner, there's a shop called the Spice Market. The Spice Market is absolutely amazing for spices. And you get them in packs. So obviously you can refill. If you've got little pots or bits and bobs, you can refill them or tub them up. But like pound for pound, they're just so much cheaper than buying supermarket ones. So I think I could get like a whole pack of cumin, you know, for the same price as that, and it's probably at least double the quantity. So if you are passing by, you can park in Aldi and walk over, or park in the library and walk round. It's just worth a look. It's really good. So I can smell this now. Can you smell that? Are we getting any kind of smell? So we're just going to go in with some liquid. So I've got plum tomatoes here. Chopped tomatoes would work. Because I've got plums, I'm just going to get a little knife and just kind of slightly break these up in there, just to give them a helping hand. Obviously they will break down as they cook. The other thing you could obviously have added in there is garlic. Just make it as you will, but it is really quick. Because once this is simmering, I'm then just going to let that go. So I'm going to go tin of chopped tomatoes. Now on your recipe it says 2. I got 1, so I'm going to go in with 1. But 2 now would be good, so I'm going to give that a little mix around. And then next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in about half a jar of my sauce. Oh, there we go. About half a jar. The other thing I put on your recipe that would work really well, and that's passata, just strained tomatoes. So if you've got a big jar of passata, you could leave out the 2 tins of chopped tomatoes and just pop that in. So I'm going to give that a bit of a stir. And then I'm going to add in all of my beans, which obviously are going to be my good source of protein. So let's go. What have I got? So I've got some butter beans, some cannellini beans. Everyone a fan of beans? Love beans, so yeah. I can pop those in there. Like that. And then I'm going to add in, I think these little bean chilies and chili things are lovely if you're just making a chili con carne, because that flavour is really nice rather than just using plain. So let's try this one. We've got a plant-based bean chili. So we'll pop this in. We're going all in today. So we've got some kidney beans in there. Hopefully that's not too hot, otherwise we've gone double hot. Give that a little mix. I'm going to try and just show you without tipping it all over you. There we go. So we've just got a big old, it's not very good, is it? But I'm going to go to my point before it slips. Just a really lovely, healthy looking dinner. Now, you could add in there, what else could we add? Let's have some other ideas. Yeah, celery, that would be lovely. Lentils would be amazing, yeah. Chickpeas, brilliant. I had some sweet corn, that would go in really nicely. I've just obviously just rinsed my... Yeah, peas would be lovely. And if we did something like peas, we'll talk about when we'll add them, because at the end I'm going to add the sliced carrots. You wouldn't want to go too early with the peas, because if they sit in there now, again, because they'll take minutes to cook, they're just going to break down really quickly and you're going to end up with mushy peas, which we are having today, but not in this dish. There we go. So I've got that in there. Now you're just going to do a visual, because we're all knowing what we're looking for. We're just going to do a little visual of, does it need a bit more liquid, does it not? I've got a little bit of veg stock, but what you don't want to do is go all in with the stock and think it looks too runny. We want it to be a nice thick consistency. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring it to a boil, I'm going to get some heat through it, and then I'm going to let it sit and simmer. Don't just have it on a low heat from the start. It's really important that you get the heat through it and then reduce it, because then it will start to reduce and thicken up, which really is what we're looking for. Okay, so a bit of heat. I wouldn't really season at the start as well. You're best to season at the end when everything has cooked down nicely. And then we'll season that up. So it's looking lovely. And that, apart from our onion and one carrot, that's all tinned or jarred. Okay, super easy. The kind of thing that you'll have in your stock in your cupboard. Any questions?
We'll be out of date if it's in my cupboard.
Yeah, it's really important that you know the difference between a best before and obviously a used by. So your used by you'll find on things like proteins with a short shelf life, and a best before, I mean, that's fair game really, isn't it?
The liquid from the beans.
Yep.
Are there some things you can use the liquid or what?
Well, interestingly, and if anyone is a vegan here, you may well know, I'm pretty sure the liquid from chickpeas you can use as a kind of egg substitute for making meringues, can't you? Is it called aquafaba or aquafaba, something like that? Yeah. And I mean, there are recipes as well where you could just leave that liquid in there, and you could with this, because I added a bit of veg stock for flavour, but you could have just left the liquid in the tins and maybe just crumbled the stock cube or one of those stock pots. And popped it straight in. So if you don't have to drain them off. I've got like a sausage cassoulet recipe where all of the liquid goes in, as you know, including that. So however you want to do it. Right, next thing then, so with that chilli, it's really important that you just don't let it dry out. So every now and again, give it a little stir. Don't let it sort of dry out too much on the bottom. Just make sure, if it catches, it's fine, because it'll add a little bit of flavour, but just don't let it completely go. Just add a little bit more stock if needed, but that can now sit. Or if you've got a slow cooker, or you literally whack the whole lot into your slow cooker in the morning. So put your onion in. Or if you wanted to, you could just cook your onion and your spice off in a pan, then tip that in, and then just tip.
Then how long would you let it cook in the slow cooker?
I reckon about probably 3 hours. I suppose it depends whether you have it on a medium, or this is low or high. Probably on a low, you could leave it for about 3 hours. I mean, everything's cooked, so you're just looking for texture. Having said that, obviously, if you do like meats and things, chicken would really lend itself to that, mince would lend itself to that. You could put some corn in if you're a vegetarian, whatever it might be. You could put some lamb in, you know, whatever you want, it could just get popped in there. Right, we've got to do a pudding, obviously. And we're going to serve it with some low-fat double cream alternative. Right, so we're going to make a cobbler. So a cobbler obviously has fruit on the bottom, and then it's like a kind of spongy, scony top. I'm going to do a double batch just because there's a lot of us and I didn't want you to feel shortchanged on your dessert. So I have got in my bowl just some butter and some flour. So flour, hopefully, obviously, is a food that, with a bit of luck, we've all got a bag of flour in the cupboard. Just plain flour. But to be honest, Hilda, if you've only got self-raising, that's not even going to be an issue. So don't think, oh, God, I've only got self-raising, I better go out. It's a cobbler. No one minds, okay? So we're just going to give this a little mix, and we want to breadcrumb it. So we did this when we did our short cross pastry, obviously. And there's all sorts of flours out there now. You can get the B-row, which is expensive. This is just a kind of Tesco's own, but then you can get like the essentials ranges, can't you? And we're talking, I don't know, 50p for a bag of flour, and it goes a long way. And I don't think you'd really notice any difference. We can't really taste test flour, can we? But that would be a really bad option. We'll have to make some biscuits with it one week. That would be a good taste test. Scones. We need to make scones with it. We are going to do cheese scones, Hilda. I've got it earmarked. So we're just going to breadcrumb that together. Now, yours won't be this vast. If you happen to have at home like a food processor, obviously you could just whack the flour and the butter into the food processor and that would just whiz it right round for you. I'm just going to breadcrumb that together. Now, you want your butter to be cold and you don't want margarine from a tub because it just won't work very well. So you need that to be a block. You can buy baking blocks rather than butter. Baking blocks are obviously slightly more processed because they're essentially vegetable fats, a bit synthetic.
Is that salted butter, slightly salted?
Always, Hilda, always. I'm just going to drop my temperature here. I can hear this bubbling away. I'll just take that down a teeny bit. I must admit, I do always use salted butter.
Can you use that plant butter?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
That's often a lot softer.
Yeah, the baking blocks are obviously plant-based, aren't they? You know, and they're slightly cheaper. They're like 96p, I think, for a bacon one. I just like to treat you to the good stuff. So there we go. Now, what I'm going to do in a minute, and this at the moment is essentially a crumble mix, obviously. So if you got some apples to use up or whatever, we didn't have to make this into a cobbler. We could just now add a bit of sugar to this. You could put a few oats in if you wanted to. Oats are cheap. But you could add a few chopped nuts into that. That would work if you want to go kind of luxurious in a crumble. But we'll turn ours into a cobbler. So that's breadcrumbed. Nearly. Like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a bit of cinnamon to that. A little bit of cinnamon. Make that nice. Sorry about this. It's just such a vast amount of flour. There we go. Obviously, you can also make like savoury cobblers as well. Little scones that you drop onto casseroles, bits and bobs like that. They're lovely. Have you all had those? They're nice. There we go. Right, so butter, flour, mixed up. I'm just going to give my hands a little rinse and just a little bit of cinnamon and some sugar. So I'm going to add a little bit of baking powder. I'm going to add a little bit of cinnamon. So I think yours says a teaspoon, doesn't it? So I'll go about 2. There we go. I'm going to add some caster sugar. Again, if you've got granulated at home and you don't have caster, or if you've got brown sugar at home, that is not an issue at all. Pop it in. And if you don't have cinnamon at home, doesn't matter. Don't have to worry about it at all. Just use whatever you have, okay? Sometimes recipes are brilliant when you don't have what it says, because then you adapt. Just create new recipes. And last thing I'm going to pop in here is 2 eggs. Yours is 1, obviously, but I'm doing a double. And I'll just mix them up briefly first. like this. If you don't like egg, or you don't have any egg, at this point you could just add a bit of milk. And they probably won't be quite as enriched, quite as luxurious your cobbler, but it would work because it will turn it into more of a scone mix. So I'm going to pop those in there, whack them in, and then we're just going to give everything a mix, like so. So you start off. You could have done this whole thing in the food processor if you wanted. If you're lucky enough to have a processor at home, you wouldn't even need to touch anything. So there we go. Let's pop that in there, like that. And you want a fairly loose dough. So just like that. It wants to be fairly wet, which this is. Good-o. And we'll just set that to one side, like that. Okay, so we're going to prepare now our fruit filling. And obviously today we're going to use tin fruit, which is brilliant for these. If you really wanted to not use tin fruit and you wanted like fresh apples or whatever it might be, use whatever you've got. Okay, cobbler is the cobbler, but we're going to go with a bit of tinned. So I have got a bit of a variety. I've got some mango slices. Fruit's always in syrup, isn't it? So don't eat a whole tin of syrup fruit and think you've had one of your 5 a day. Because you may have, but you've also had a lot of syrupy sugar. So what have we got? We've got 2 peaches. We'll use those. We've got 3 mango, and some apricots. So let's mix it up. That'll be nice. So this will be delicious. What other fruits do you think would be amazing in there? Pears would be lovely. Cherries would be really nice. Raspberries would be brilliant. Blueberries. Rhubarb would be delicious, a rhubarb cobbler.
You can get fruit in liquid without the syrup.
Can you?
You get juice in juice.
Oh, just in juice. Yeah, that would be better.
Can you use frozen fruit as well?
Yeah, frozen fruit would be perfect. That would be really good. I tell you where it's really good for frozen fruit. Seems to be the cheapest is Farm Foods because they do like a multi-buy. They do like 3 packs for or 4 packs for £10 or something, and it actually works out cheaper than if you buy it, say in Asda. It just seems a better value, and you can get all sorts. You can get apples in there, yeah, cherries, blueberries. They have a really good selection.
I think Iceland do that, where you can get like multi.
Is Iceland now the one at the Hardwick?
Yeah, but there's an Iceland in Downham.
Oh, is there?
There's a normal Iceland, and then there's the food warehouse.
The food warehouse, yeah. So they do the same, yeah. It's just so handy to have. I know, like, it's great to all buy fresh, but when you've got some frozen fruit in the freezer, it's just like go-to, isn't it? You're never kind of short of an idea. And this pudding you could make in sort of 10 minutes and whack it in the oven, and you feel like you've provided a nice pudding that perhaps people eat, especially going into winter. It's quite nice just to have a little warming pudding. The other thing with frozen fruit is it's brilliant for breakfast, isn't it? Because you can just whack like frozen mango onto your porridge or a few frozen raspberries and they kind of cook through with your porridge and they're really nice. Blueberries. Frozen blueberries are brilliant in muffins as well because if you make like a muffin mix, put it into the cases and then just push the blueberries in. Push like 2 or 3 in. They don't kind of disintegrate like fresh ones when you're mixing them through. So it is just a handy thing to have around. Now I'm going to get rid of the syrup here. Right, so what we'll do, I'm going to make a couple of these just so there's enough. So I'm going to pop some peaches in one. We'll do a bit of a medley, shall we? Let's do that. And then we'll pop a bit of mango in there as well. There we go. So just like that. It's really easy. And then we're going to whack some apricot in here. Oh, little apricot halves. Dried apricots are nice, aren't they? And remember that we did dried fruit as well when we did our biscuits, obviously. Donna's not here today, but she was very kind at the end of last week's session and gave me a whole batch of different flavoured biscuits that she'd made. They were delicious. So we're going to pop those in there. And then all we're going to do with our cobbler mix is we're just going to put spoonfuls all over. So I'll just mix that in. Obviously everything's cooked, so you're fine. Everything in tins is cooked. No problem at all. So we're just going to add here. I'm just going to put little blobs of this cobbler on the top. You don't have to be precise. Leave a little gap between them, because obviously in the oven that's going to slightly expand. Like this. There we go. Delicious. It's a bit easier than pastry. You know, if you're making a pie, it's slightly more time consuming, isn't it? There we go. Pop a bit more on this one, and then we'll pop them in the oven for about half an hour, 40 minutes. And then we'll eat them.
Jenny, could you slow cook that?
Oh, yeah, you probably could. On a low, you'd have to have it on a low temperature, that's the only. Oh, yeah, no, I reckon you could just put it in the slow cooker, yeah. Yeah, that would be a good idea. I don't think it'd take too long, probably a couple of hours, because you'd only be wanting the cobbler bit to go, wouldn't you? I must admit, I'm not very good with my slow cooker at doing crazy, interesting things like that. You know, I normally just put like casseroles in it. But when you look sometimes online, people come up with all sorts of things. Does anyone else use their slow cooker for anything really way out there?
Yeah, we do.
Do you?
Yeah, cook a meat in it sometimes.
Yeah. A whole chicken's lovely in it, isn't it? If you just literally whack a chicken in it and leave it for a few hours, you come back and it's, oh, nice. That's delicious. But yeah, I think this would work. I don't ever really put desserts in it. Has anyone else done a dessert in a slow cooker?
My auntie's done a steamed triple.
Oh, really?
I don't know how long it took, but tell you what, it was like.
Was it delicious? Christmas pudding? Is that like a sort of, you steam it in there, or do you just put your Christmas pudding? Right. Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah, soups are. Like that soup we did last week, you could. Rice pudding, yeah.
I thought you was going to make us one.
What's that?
Christmas pudding.
Oh, yeah, I am. Christmas week. I've got it all marinating for you already. Don't you worry. You won't want to miss that one. Of all the weeks to miss, don't miss Christmas week. Right, so let's just pop these in the oven. And we're hoping that they'll come out some beautiful, sweet, bubbling. There we go. Easy peasy, tinned fruit. Into the oven we go. Right, now our chilli has been bubbling away, and I could leave that longer. I could leave it a lot longer. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bit of guacamole. Did you know if you eat an avocado every day, you never need to moisturise? Did you know that? So forget your expensive moisturisers. Just start eating avocados every day. Now, yeah, that's absolutely true. Full of such natural oils, so good for you. And people, this is kind of myth. I know, like, when I'd say things to my mum about avocados, she'd be like, oh, too fattening, too fattening, too fattening. That's obviously just an unsaturated fat in there. So unsaturated fats are liquid at room temperature. So there's oils in it. Now, oils obviously are really, really good for you. And your body does need fats for insulation, for your hormones, for your organs. So it's really important that you eat some. And the oils in this, you know, are brilliant for you. So we're going to make a fresh guacamole just so we can see how absolutely easy it is. You don't have to have guacamole with your chili, but I just thought it might be quite nice if we had some today. And it's as simple as this. Avocados are a pain to buy sometimes, aren't they? Sometimes you just can't buy them. I've been on like a wild goose chase trying to find some. So just,
At the market, they're huge.
are they really good? Yeah, they are. And sometimes you go and buy them and they're like rock solid, aren't they? And you have to wait like 4 days. Now, I wouldn't suggest you do like 3 if there's just 2 of you at home. But if you put a bit of lime juice in it, that will keep, because it will just stop it going brown. I'm just going to scoop it out. Now, obviously you can use avocados for different things. Avocado on toast with a boiled egg is like some kind of heaven. Avocado on its own. Just want to show you how easy it is, because a few weeks ago I couldn't buy any avocados and I wanted to make some guacamole, and I was in Asda and I thought, well, I'll have to buy some guacamole. And no, and I went to the fridge and picked some out and I couldn't do it because I looked on the back, and just like we talked about with processed food, there's about 9 ingredients, and you think, well, how is that even? And then there was something called just avocado, where essentially you bought avocado sliced up, and again there was about 5 ingredients. I think, oh, not really just avocado, is it? Because there's all sorts of stuff in it. So we'll just pop these in here, like that. I might slightly overload the Ninja, but never mind.
Can you get frozen avocado?
Oh, I don't. You can. Can you? Just in any supermarket?
I've only managed to get it in Iceland,
Right.
but it's expensive and it's not.
There you go. And then this one. There. And then I'm just going to add to that a garlic clove. Or you could just crush that in, or you could grate it in. I'm just going to kind of roughly chop mine up. Yeah. And now, if you don't have one of these little Ninja things, it absolutely makes no difference, because if your avocados are soft, I could have just mashed those with the back of a fork. So don't think, oh, I don't have it. In some ways, it's better not to have one, because mine will be quite smooth, and avocados and guacamole are quite nice when they've just got a bit of a chunk. So you could just do whatever with that. So we'll pop this in here, like so. And then we're just going to give that a little bit of salt. And there. And then I've got a sour cream. Now again, this is optional. You don't have to put sour cream in. I'm just going to pop a teaspoon in. And then it's quite nice, because then you've got the sour cream to put on the chilli as well. So we'll just pop a teaspoon in. Almost just makes it go a bit further as well. And then we'll just whiz that around when I plug it in. There we go. Just give that a little mix through. You don't really want to kind of make too much avocado unless you're going to put lime juice in, too much guacamole, just because the next day it will go a bit browny green. It still tastes fine, but doesn't look so appetizing. We'll put that in there. Okay. So avocado, there's some guacamole in there. Boom. And then the last thing we're going to do, we're not going to serve this with rice today. What I've got, because it's dried, we've got some tortillas. Now we've got the cheapest of the cheap tortillas, which are my absolute favourites. Because what we're going to do, a bit like when we did the wraps, we're going to slightly bring them back to life. So I've got a couple of oven trays, don't have anything on them. I'm going to take my chips, empty them out. What I like about the cheap ones as well is they're not over flavoured. You know, when you get like the inch layer of cool flavouring on them, they're really strong. So these are Asda ones, and I think they're about 50p. So pretty good. Tesco's do their own version. They're always on the bottom shelf because they're the cheap ones. They put them out of your eye line. Doritos are always there. And we're just going to pop them on there. I love a crisp, don't you? Oh, I'd rather a crisp than a cake.
Most of the cheap items are on the bottom shelf.
Yeah, they are.
So you need to walk around the supermarket. Straight ahead, just look down.
It's a bit like when we were talking about coconut milk. It's that they actually put the cheap coconut milk in a different aisle. So I think they hope that you'll just buy the expensive one, not notice. Right, now with these, you can just pop them straight in the oven now for about 2 or 3 minutes. Don't go off and do something because you'll come back to some kind of carnage. But 2 or 3 minutes into the oven, I'm just going to put a little drizzle of oil like this, and I mean a drizzle. And what's quite nice at home, if you happen to have some dry sage, just put a little sprinkling of dry sage on. That works really nicely. So there we go. It's going to bring them to life. It's going to give them an extra dimension just because they've been in the oven for 2 minutes, okay? So we'll whack them in. There. It's just like when we dry fried the wraps. Just gives them a certain something. 2 or 3 minutes, they'll be done. Okay, and I think we're ready to try our first dish. So what we'll do is we'll plate up a little bit of chilli. Just going to try a little bit, check it for seasoning. Oh, it's nice. Has got a kick. So I'm going to serve up some chili, bit of guacamole, some crisps. Is there anyone who doesn't want the guacamole, or shall I just pop it all in? So with this chili, I'm doing it with this. Obviously, you could do it with rice. Obviously, you could do that over a jacket potato. You could just stir some pasta through it. You could do it over some nice bread, a bit like posh beans on toast, and put a load of grated cheese all over it. It's cheap. If you're going to be living on your own soon, or going to university or something, this is how you can eat on a budget. On your own. It's not listening, but you know, it's just in denial. Well, you know, a couple of years when you're having to fend for yourself, you'll be able to make food cheaply.
He's completely oblivious.
I know. What else should we say? We're just volunteering for the washing up in a minute. Right, here we go. So we've got our chili here. Just going to start to pop some chili on some plates. How many are we on today? Do we know? $25. There you go, Dave. I've got a job for you today. Can you do me a favour? Just pop a little blob of avocado like that on. Is that okay?
On all of them.
Yeah, on all of those that can go on. Brilliant. Yeah. Yes, it is. No. Hang on, Bet. I'm going to give you a job. Give me 30 seconds. Oh, do you want to take some food round? Do you want to go and hand some out? Right, come on, Bet. Betty wants to hand a few round. Go around that side, Bet. There you go. There you go. Okay. Right. Those gone. Let's go. Let's go.
Doing down the corner, doing the biscuits.
Want me to pass you these?
Go. Don't feel you have to stay with the whole thing, Susie. Any more chili, anyone? There's a bit left if anybody wants it.